Hi, my name's Jacob Armstrong. I'm the pastor of Providence United Methodist Church. Some of us right now feel like we are in the middle of a storm. I thought I knew storms. I grew up in Middle Tennessee where we get crazy about storms. We have thunderstorm watch, thunderstorm warning, and then just all-out panic. So I thought I knew storms until I was in a storm in Kansas. We were on a family vacation driving through Kansas, and we were searching for a motel. Anything, like an exit would have been nice, a billboard, some sign of life. But we finally found an exit with a motel. We settled into our second floor room of the motel, and in the middle of the night, the TV came on. It just turned on with that a storm was brewing warning. The TV said to take shelter. My wife Rachel and I lay awake and watched this news report, and then the wind started to blow. Like I had never heard wind blow, and then it began to rain. I wasn't sure what to do or where to go, so I ran down into the rain to the lobby of the motel. I saw the lady on the bike turn into a witch, Aunt Em and the rocker went by, and I got there, and there was a clerk eating Cheetos and watching some zombie show in the middle of the night. I said, "What should we do?" And he said, "About what?" And I said, "The storm." And he said, "This is no big deal. Don't worry about it." I look out and there are Hondas, flying around in the air. And he said, "It's fine, it's fine." I came back to our room, soaked with Kansas storm rainwater, and Rachel and I did what you have done. Maybe what you're doing right now. We looked out the window 100 times. I paced, we huddled, we prayed, we tried to sleep. We hoped we'd get through. Some of us are in the midst of something right now where we're hoping to get through. A thing in a relationship or at work or financially. We don't know how it's going to go. We are in the storm of uncertainty or the storm of transition. The miracle that I want to tell you about today is actually not one about physical healing or changing water into wine. It's not about someone dead coming to life or hungry people being fed. All awesome Jesus miracles. It's about some people that love and follow Jesus who are in the middle of a storm, suddenly trying to find a way to make it through. If you were to trace Jesus' steps, you find him moving about all over the place. There is, however, one central geographical feature in his movement, and it's called the Sea of Galilee. The Sea of Galilee is about 64 square miles. How big is that? About 22 miles from one side to the other. And Jesus was regularly going out onto the sea, traveling to one side and back again. Thankfully, several in his normal traveling party were adept at boating, and it seemed that the sea was one of Jesus' ways of stealing away from the crowds. So it may not be that big of a surprise that in the story we're looking at, that Jesus gets onto the boat and proceeds to take a nap. He had spent all day teaching. The whole day he'd been talking, but now he was quiet. And they rowed across, embarked on the 22-mile float, and in the night, a storm came. Maybe another day they would have been more perceptive of the clouds, but they missed it. A furious squall came up. Wind, rain, waves. The waves broke over the boat to the point that the boat was filling with water, and they were, in fact, sinking. These fishermen and boaters were busy doing what you do when you're fighting for your life in the middle of a storm. They didn't even notice that Jesus wasn't helping them. Someone does notice, finally, that Jesus is sleeping. It wasn't a huge boat in the middle of the storm and rain and lightning and wind and waves. They all see him sleeping in the back of the boat. And do you know what the disciples wondered? Does Jesus even care that we are in a storm? The disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" The answer to the question for them and for all of us, the question of does Jesus care if we drown? Does Jesus care about my storm? The answer is a resounding yes. What Jesus says, though, is interesting. The way he shows us he cares is he says, "Quiet, be still." Presumably and scripturally, he says that to the storm, "Quiet, be still." Jesus rebukes the wind and says to the waves, "Quiet." They are terrified and say, "Who is this? The wind and the waves do what he says." Why does this one strike them so close to home? This one was for them. This is the miracle they needed. Other miracles they watched, they were for other people, but this miracle isn't one they watched, it's one they got. The miracle the disciples needed was the calming of the storm. The miracle for the disciples was one of slowing and calming everything down. They are on a journey like us, not point A to point B, but A to C and then back to A. Life is sort of crazy. It would be a miracle for many of us if we could be calm, if we could slow down. Slowing down and calming down allowed them to see what Jesus had the power to do for them. They hadn't missed the miracles, but the story shows that they were slow to see what it meant for them. We actually have to stop trying to save ourselves before we can see God's salvation for us. We have to let Jesus still the storm. This is the miracle for the people who follow God. I've seen it played out so many times. There was a time when Rachel and I were dealing with something with one of our family members that we thought we had a handle on, but then all of a sudden it got away from us. It became a storm. No one had done anything wrong. It was just a hard time, a storm. And this storm for us grew into something we were always thinking about. And then it grew into fear. And then the fear led to exhaustion because sometimes storms go on longer than we thought they would. I had forgotten that the wind and the waves obey God, that storms listen to God's word. I thought the wind and waves were going to overtake me. I thought I had to do all these things to fend it off. And it took our story to remind me. I had been frantic. And when I stopped trying to save everything, I saw that God could. Today for you might just be one of those times to stop and be quiet and see the miracle only God can do.